What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
Good Wednesday morning. I'm Chris Broussard alongside Greg Jennings, Super Bowl champion Greg Jennings, and NBA champion Antoine Walker here to talk some hoops. We got a lot to get to. Greg, let's get it started.
Let's do it. We're going to start out west. The Nets taking on the Suns. No Durant, no Kyrie. So James Harden simply just took over. 38 Nets rallied from down 24 to beat the Suns. That's 4 wins in a row now for Brooklyn. So Chris, what was your biggest takeaway from the Nets comeback win?
Well, look, it obviously was a great win, but I have to start out with this. It's hard to make definitive statements about the Nets right now when they aren't playing their big star players. You know, it's either 2 of them. Last night, obviously, it was 1 of them. So it's hard. They've only played 7 games together with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. They're 5-2. But when all 3 of those guys aren't on the floor, even in a great win like last night, it's hard to read too much into it. Look, Joe Harris was great, 22 points. Jeff Green was fantastic, 18 points, 11 in the fourth quarter. But their roles will change. Tyler Johnson was good too. But all of those guys' roles will change, as will James Harden's. He's not going to score 38 when those 2 are there. So I have to put that out there, and I got to throw this out as well. I'm starting to worry that they're not playing together enough. They've only, as I said, 7 games. It's reminding me of the Clippers last year, how they weren't practicing a lot together, they weren't playing a lot together, and they kind of felt like they could just get on the court with their star players and everything was going to fit. And the Nets seem to be going that route as well. So I'm a little bit concerned there. But as far as a takeaway, I'm going to go with the defense. We know that is their biggest challenge. And they're not going to be a great defensive team, but they can be adequate. And that's all they need is to be adequate and to get stops when necessary, to be capable of getting stops late in the game when they have to. And they did it last night. They held Phoenix to about 44% shooting in the second half, held them scoreless in the last 2.5 minutes. Devin Booker, the great Devin Booker, 0 points in the fourth quarter. So they showed that when push comes to shove, Antoine, they can turn on the defense.
My biggest takeaway, Chris, and I loved a lot of the things that you talked about, but it was about the others and James Harden. But it was the others to me. I think the Jeff Greens, the Joe Harris, the Tyler Johnsons, those guys do not get any recognition, and they probably will not get any all season long. But to go on the road, to play a red-hot team like the Phoenix Suns, and to come back from 24 and multiple guys make big plays late in the games is a confidence booster. Because a person that was a part of a championship team like myself, where Shaq and D. Wade got all the individual accolades, it's always good throughout the season to have a game where the others step up and get you a big win, especially on the road. On the other half of that, I thought James Harden was incredible. Continued to play with a good pace, regardless when they were down 24, stayed on their attack mode, got other guys involved. But we've seen that for the last 7-8 years in Houston, him have these type of performances. But I think it's good for him to do it. It's good for Kyrie and Kevin to do it, to be on the bench and just to see the team camaraderie that they build. I think you alluded to something that's very important, though. I do worry a little bit about everything that's going on with them off the court, where guys are not actually playing. You got, obviously, protocol. They need to get some consistency going if they're going to make a real run and try to win a title. But right now, last night was a huge win and a statement win for the others that was out there that played really well for them.
For me, it was all about James Harden. And I hear you, Antoine. The others did step up, but it was because of the facilitation of James Harden and his ability to get them open in position where they could be most effective. Getting DeAndre Jordan easy buckets at the rim, Harris outside, Johnson, everyone was able to be a role player, but be an effective role player because of the penetration, because of the scoring ability of James Harden. And this is why you do everything you can to acquire a guy like this. The Nets knew, and Chris, I totally get your sentiments when it comes to them all playing together, because you got to build that chemistry in order to have deep runs, and that's what this team is built to do. But this is why you get a guy like James Harden, because you knew you weren't going to play Kevin Durant on back-to-back nights. You knew Kyrie was going to kind of be in and out. And so you acquire a guy like James Harden, who has always been able to get buckets and remind people that Harden is Harden. Nothing's changed. We know he is one of the most elite scorers in the NBA, and this is nothing new for him. So for him to be able to have a showing like this last night, I wasn't surprised. I was impressed by that. The rest, I mean, they do have to figure that out and how they're going to get these guys on the court and building that chemistry, because when it matters most is in the playoffs. It can't be this way in the postseason. We know that, Chris.
Yeah, look, it was a great night for the Nets, and I took a few other positives away from the game, too. A lot of people might not realize this, but the Nets are 10-1 against teams with winning records. They're the only team in the Eastern Conference that has a winning record against teams above 500, believe it or not. They got the best record in the league. Utah second at 10-3. The Lakers, just for comparison's sake, are 5-6 against teams with winning records. So the Nets, even with everybody in and out of the lineup, when they want to step it up and they look at their opponent as a challenge rather than some of, the games they've lost to these weaker opponents, they can go to another level. So that is a great sign. And you got to think when they get all three of their stars on the court together, that's even going to be more so the case. The other thing, kind of like you were saying, Antoine, their small ball lineup is dangerous. All right. It can give many teams problems because most teams don't have a Joel Embiid or even a big man who's going to punish you if you go small. So last night with Jeff Green playing center, they outscored the Suns 40-24 in the fourth quarter. All right. That small ball lineup gave them problems. DeAndre Ayton couldn't handle Jeff Green. And so that is something that a lot of teams are going to have to deal with as well. So a lot of good positives to come out of last night for the Nets.
And also, just to add to that, is that when you play in small ball, and that's that Mike D'Antoni effect over there on the bench, taking his toll right now when they play small lineups. The difference between their small lineup and, say, a Houston small lineup, it's not James Harden taking 50 dribbles. You don't need them to take 50 dribbles with this group. When they're at 100%, you've got multiple guys that can create their own shot, and the ball moves a lot better. And if you saw that in the last two games, let's talk about the three-point shooting. They made 23s last night without Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. This is a very lethal offensive team. And last night should have showed the league and people that listen. When you have two other guys with James Harden's capability on the floor, that's what makes them difficult to beat. Even though they're not there defensively, but offensively, they have three guys that can do what James Harden did last night on any given night. And most teams do not have that. Most teams are built with 2 stars. These guys are built with 3 stars that with a unique offensive skill set of creating shots for themselves.
Well, the Nets are definitely special to watch, but let's get to the football side of things, and we're going to come back talking about Odell Beckham, and could he be on his way out of Cleveland sooner than we think? That's coming up next on First Things First.
Hey, first things first, listeners. I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports. Plus, a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com.
All right, Sunday on Fox, the NASCAR Cup Series returns to Daytona as Chase Elliott looks to defend his win at the 14-turn road course. All the action starts Sunday at 3 Eastern on Fox and on the Fox Sports app. All right, we're back with Brian Westbrook talking Odell Beckham Jr. The latest report out of Cleveland says salary cap concerns could make it more likely that OBJ is on the trading block this offseason. Odell on track in his recovery from an ACL tear. So, Greg, should other teams still consider OBJ a franchise-altering weapon when targeting him in a trade?
Chris, I'm going to say no, but that does not mean he's not a good acquisition for a number of teams. When I think of a franchise-altering player, that means he's going to be the feature. He's going to be pretty much the face, altering everything that they do offensively in this position because of his skills on that side of the ball. But when I look at Odell Beckham, there's a lot of things in this league that happens when guys start to get up there in age and then they start to show injury. In 2017, it started with the ankle injury. He needed surgery to fix that. 2018, he missed the last 4 games of the season. Then 19, he had the core muscle injury, the sports hernia, and then last year, the ACL. And so when you're 28 years old and he still has time, he still has youth on his side. But the question is he going to still be the productive Odell Beckham that we were able to see and that we came and we all were introduced to when he was with the Giants as a rookie in his first 3 years? Can he provide that? I don't know if he really can, but can he be a second piece for a team that is a contender that can get him the ball in space and let him do what he does so very well, which is get down the field, be a game breaker and a game wrecker? Yes, I do believe he still can add value to a lot of offenses in this National Football League. But will he be a feature guy? I just don't think that this is the Odell Beckham that we will see because of the injuries. And with that, he just hasn't been on the field enough to show that he can sustain his health right now in his career. But I think he would be a great acquisition for a number of teams across the league.
You know, Greg, I certainly understand the injury side of things, and I think that's important. We have to bring up the injury because we all know throughout your career, the injury is going to play a part in how effective you can be to any organization. But I think he can be a game changer and a franchise-altering player. And here's the reason why. And first of all, he has to go to the absolute correct situation. He has to go to a situation that's already pretty much ready-made. They just need the right receiver. But I compare it to what Stephon Diggs was able to do this year in Buffalo. Was Stephon Diggs a altering guy in Minnesota? He was a good player, really good player, but I didn't view him as a franchise-altering guy. He goes to Buffalo, a great situation, great culture presented by Sean McDermott, a great character in that locker room. Leslie Frazier in that defense, Tre'Davious Wright, that defense was really, really good. Offensively, they needed a guy that can be that game breaker, a guy that can open things up similar to Odell Beckham Jr., and they got Stephon Diggs. They needed a guy they can throw the ball to consistently. 166 targets he got this year. And he took Josh Allen, a quarterback that was developing, from 3,000 yards in 2019 and 20 touchdowns to this year, just about 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns.
He was able to open that field up, be a receiver that the quarterback can depend on week in and week out, every single route, throwing the ball up to him, throwing deep, throwing intermediate routes as well. I think Odell Beckham Jr. can bring that to a football team, provided, again, that it's the right situation, not a situation where you're rebuilding, but put them in a situation where your team already has the right character, already has the right culture. They just need a guy that can go out there and make plays. And I think in that situation, Odell Beckham Jr. has the ability to excel.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys a few teams where I think he could alter their destiny. One, how about Baltimore? You know, Lamar Jackson needs a big play receiver. And OBJ, you know, can make up for some bad throws by the quarterback because we know he can go get the ball. And he also can turn a short route into a game-breaking play. So I would love to see OBJ. It's time for them to get Lamar the weapons. We always talk about, you know, is he a great passer? Can he throw outside the numbers? But as you mentioned, Brian, you saw what a great receiver Stephon Diggs can do for a young quarterback. We saw it in Arizona with DeAndre Hopkins and what he did for Kyler Murray. I'd like to see Lamar get a receiver like that before I say, oh, you know what? He can only hit the tight end. He can only throw it in the middle of the field. So I think that would be a good one. I think San Francisco, if they go ahead and get Deshaun Watson. I don't like OBJ there with Jimmy Garoppolo. I wonder if his personality would be too strong and Garoppolo would feel like forced to get it to OBJ. Kind of like I thought Baker was, you know, before OBJ went down. And you're not making the right play. You're just looking for your star receiver. But if they get Deshaun Watson, who I think is a strong enough personality, I think OBJ would be the guy I'd go after to try to team him up with Watson in San Francisco. And then Green Bay, obviously you got Devontae Adams. I think OBJ, if he went there, he would respect Aaron Rodgers enough where he'd settle in to be, okay, I'm the second guy. I don't think he'd have any problems, raise any trouble there. And I think he'd be a great compliment to Devontae Adams, Greg.
I like all those teams. I like the San Francisco 49ers with or without Jimmy Garoppolo. And that is because of Kyle Shanahan and his ability to schematically scheme guys open individually within their scheme. So not going outside of what they do, but taking a player, an individual, and seeing what he does best and putting him in position to win. Odell Beckham, I believe, would thrive in that situation. And then you mentioned the Green Bay Packers. In my opinion, that's one of the front runners for me because of his Aaron Rodgers' ability to just get the ball to his playmakers and extend the play and be off script. Kind of the way Odell Beckham likes to play. He's not a real rhythm receiver where he's going to run every route on the route tree and just be in the pocket and you're 3-step drop, 5-step drop, and it's like hit him, hit him, hit him. When things break down, you get the ball to Odell Beckham and he makes special things happen. You talked about the Baltimore Ravens. I would push back on that only because the frustration I think Odell would experience with some of the inconsistency that would come with getting the ball from Lamar Jackson. And I get it. Lamar Jackson has improved as a passer, but he hasn't proven. And your point, you want him to get that receiver to show, can he prove to be a pass-throwing quarterback in this league as well as a running quarterback. But another place that I think that he would fit in well would be the Washington football team. Alongside Terry McLaurin, I think they have some nice pieces defensively. They are great. They will get the ball back to that offense. Quarterback position, I think Taylor Heineke could be their guy. And he has a lot of confidence after what he was able to do in that postseason game and that showing. But McLaurin getting another sidekick, a consistent, valuable guy that he can learn from, and that can still even the playing field for him, that would be something to watch, Westbrook.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the Washington football team only because they don't have an established quarterback. Taylor Heineke played well in that one playoff appearance. But Odell Beckham Jr. needs to go to a place where they have an established quarterback that's linked, and I'll find a way to get you the football. That's why I like Green Bay a bunch. You know, you mentioned the Ravens, and this is what I think he can help. Odell Beckham Jr. can help the Ravens. He's going to do a couple things. He's going to give Lamar Jackson that established receiver that defenses have to respect. So now they have to respect the pass game a little bit, and Lamar Jackson's going to have to be better at the quarterback position. But it's also going to force Greg Roman to be more with that offense. It's going to force him to be open things up. Or now you're going to have John Harbaugh wondering, why aren't you throwing the ball? Why aren't you getting the ball to one of our most explosive players on offense? And so I think it will open things up for the Ravens in the way that they certainly need to. And for Lamar Jackson, also give him a receiver that he can count on game in and game out, that he can throw the ball to consistently. And I think Odell Beckham Jr. can fall into that role very seamlessly. Here's a good thing about those two other teams. You talk about Green Bay and San Fran. He doesn't have to be the guy there right away. You go to Green Bay, Devontae Adams is a guy. Aaron Rodgers will find a way to get him the football as long as he's open. And then when you look at San Fran, Greg, you laid it out perfectly. That offense is about getting the ball to the open receiver, finding a way to stretch the field, run the football, and then some play action pass there. Odell Beckham Jr. helps all of that. He stretches the football field, opens up the running game a little bit more. You get him the ball in space, and he's one of the most dynamic guys with the ball in his hands in the NFL. And I just think as long as he comes back healthy, he'll be a help to any football team that he joins.
I'll tell you guys one thing I don't really want to see from OBJ are tweets or Instagram posts about, watch out, I'm coming back. Everybody's sleeping on me. I'll be back next year. They done forgot. I mean, that rarely
That's
works
the only
out.
way that we know he's
Cam
working out, though.
about.
Exactly.
He can work out, but I just don't want to hear, you can post the workouts, but remember Cam, all that talk about what the Lions about to roar or something like that, and it just didn't happen. And OBJ was talking before last season too. I get that that's his personality. I don't mind guys being braggadocious like that, but I just think at this point, with all the injuries he's had, I just don't want to hear, just go out and prove it to me on the field. That's really all I want to see from OBJ. But Greg, why do you think, we talked about Stephon Diggs helping out Josh Allen, DeAndre Hopkins helping out Kyler Murray. Why do you think it didn't really work out that way in Cleveland with OBJ and Baker Mayfield, or at least to this point?
Well, I don't think it worked out that way in Cleveland, to Brian's point of not having an established quarterback. When you have a receiver that has proven that he can get it done, and again, Odell Beckham and Stephon Diggs are two completely different type of receivers. Stephon Diggs can run every single route in the route tree. I'm not saying Odell can't, but Stephon Diggs is a route runner, precision, precise route runner. That is not Odell Beckham. And when you look at what Baker Mayfield's strengths are, he needs a guy to be exactly where he wants them to be in the timing. And Odell Beckham, I believe, was too big of a personality and just a star and a stud to where it put pressure on your young quarterback and where he was in his career. Now, Josh Allen, a young quarterback, but he had all the confidence in the world, again, with everyone within that organization, to Brian's point, to where he wanted that Stephon Diggs guy. He wanted them to give him somebody that he could trust, that could bring not only that team to where they were, but his game to where it ended up being as a quarterback. So for me, that's why I feel like with Baker Mayfield, it wasn't the great fit. But to your point about him tweeting and all of that, I don't like when guys try to be what they're not. Just be who you are. If that's what you are and that's what you've always done, do that. Do you. Brian, what's your thoughts, man?
Chris is just so old school. Come on, Chris. Let these guys, they want to be on Instagram. They want to show their workout. And as a media member now, that's literally the only thing I could get to talk about all. I know. But he was in a bad situation in Cleveland. I think Greg just lined it out. He has to go to a place that has a really good and established quarterback that knows exactly what he wants. He can't be there to help the quarterback get better. And that's why I guess the Baltimore side may not make as much sense. But he has to go to a place that the offense is established. The offensive coordinator knows exactly what each player is supposed to do. And then that player, you have a role for Odell Beckham Jr. Here's your role. We're going to throw the ball to you 10 times a game. You have to get open on these routes. That's what you have to do for Odell Beckham Jr. You just can't throw him into a situation with a young quarterback trying to figure things out. That's not his place at this point in his career, Chris. And when I look at it, I think there are some certain situations that he can go to and be very successful. San Fran and Green Bay being two of them.
All right, speaking of old school, Brian, we're going to talk LeBron James when we come back.
Yeah.
Can he carry the Lakers with AD on the sidelines? That's next on First Things First.
Hey, First Things First listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to First Things First.
But we're back with Mr. Hezzy himself, Antoine Walker. It's time to run the fast break. Let's go to the Lakers, and they got it done last night without AD again up here in Minnesota. Montrezl Harrell and Dennis Schroeder stepped up big, and LeBron said after the game, having one of our biggest pieces out, everyone came in and chipped in a little bit more. So Antoine, or should I say Mr. Hesitation himself, are you buying that the Lakers supporting cast can continue to step up in AD's absence?
Definitely. I do believe their supporting cast can step up. This is a different Laker team because they're not as big as they were last year. When you think about Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee coming off the bench. Marc Gasol played extended minutes last night. He played 30 minutes, made 3 threes last night. He's going to probably be asked to play a little bit more because they lack size. They'll probably play a little bit more small ball where you add Markieff Morris to the mix, and then Tyler Horton is going to come in and play more. But I believe this second unit is very capable, and they'll be able to hold the fort down when LeBron James is out of the game. But LeBron played 38 minutes last night. That's a little concerning. I don't know if you want LeBron playing 38 minutes every night. You might want to keep him around 33, 34. But with AD out and LeBron's competitive spirit, he's going to probably push the envelope a little bit because LeBron wants to win. That's what makes LeBron special, and that's what separates himself from everybody in the league. But I think this second unit is going to be very good and very capable of holding the fort down without AD.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Antoine, and say yes, because this is what LeBron James does. He has always made role players better. And when Kyrie Irving's out in Cleveland, they still win. When Dwayne Wade was out in Miami, they still win. Regular season games. I'm not saying he can lift a team like this to the championship, but he certainly can win regular season games. Here's what I'm really interested in seeing, though. And I alluded to this earlier. The Lakers are just 5-6 against teams with winning records. They've been beating up on the bad teams and the bottom dwellers in the NBA, and that's with AD. Now they got Brooklyn coming up, Utah, Portland, Golden State, and Phoenix, all within the next couple weeks. They're going to have to play those games without AD. I want to see how good this Lakers team can play against those top-flight opponents, and can LeBron still lift the role players to victories over those teams?
Yeah, I'm with both of you guys. I think LeBron and these guys in this unit can step up big and continue to hold down the fort. However, I like, again, what Dennis Schroeder and what Montrezl Harrell has been able to do. That's the expectation. We expect Montrezl Harrell to step up a little bit more. We expect Dennis Schroeder to step up a little bit more, be asked to score a little bit more. But the guy that has to play better, in my opinion, is Kyle Kuzma. And he just hasn't done that for me. Averaging 10 points in this stretch will run that you just mentioned, the players or the teams that they're going to be facing this upcoming stretch. Kyle Kuzma needs to get to around that 15, 17-point mark for them to be comfortably working with LeBron James and not allowing him to play those 38 minutes that you mentioned, Antoine. And so for me, I think it works, but it's putting a lot of stress on a player who's older. Yes, can he get it done? Has he shown that he can continue to get it done? Yes, but this is not what he wants to be doing at this stage in his career, Antoine.
Well, look, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world if they don't, win a lot of these games. I don't think the Lakers should be looking at this like, we have to protect this number 1 or number 2 seed. All right, we got to go all out. And you guys are talking about LeBron's minutes. I still would want to keep him around 34, maybe 36 minutes. I don't want him out there playing 38 minutes every night. I understood it a week ago when they had these overtime games. But I don't think that should become the habit because the Lakers can win without the home court advantage. All right, we don't even know how many fans are going to be in the stands anyway come playoff times, and the Lakers are the best road team in the league. So they shouldn't overload LeBron during this stretch. But you're right, Greg. Kuzma's got to step up and show consistency. He's played well of late, but then last night he goes for 7 points. I'm not worried about Schroeder and Harrell. I know they can put up numbers, but I need Kuzma to play well, and I need KCP to come out of that slump. Not just to win games now, but I'm going to need him later in the season, especially come playoff time. You saw he was big in the finals, so I want to get his confidence up and get him out of this three-point slump that he's in.
That's a great point, Chris. On to Milwaukee. The Bucks lost their 4th in a row last night, falling to the Raptors, but Giannis isn't panicking, saying that the 4-game slide, quote, isn't the end of the world. So, Antoine, is it time to worry about the Bucks after their 4th straight loss?
Yes, it's time to worry about the Bucks. I think when you think about the Milwaukee Bucks and their team and the way their team is built and the structure of their team, they're fairly healthy. I know Jrue Holiday did not play last night, but they're fairly healthy. And I look at the bottom line. I start from the top. I look at Giannis. Giannis is still shooting 29% from the three-point line. He shoots 64% from the free throw line. So that concerns me going into the playoffs because that's a deficiency of his. He hasn't improved that. Chris Middleton is still a 50, 40, 90 guy, but I still think he's still being too unselfish. He has to be more aggressive. He should be averaging 25 points a game. This is an all-star now. He's right at 20 points a game. So I think they defensively, we saw them dominate 2 regular seasons the past 2 years where they were the best team in the East and had the best record and really dominate the regular season. This is not the same team. I had high expectations for them. I thought they'll be a lot better. With the additions that they added to their team, they added depth that they didn't have in years past. They got nice depth now. I thought they'll be a lot better. So I am concerned. And that bothers me that Giannis thinks a 4-game losing streak is not a concern. I think seeding could matter in the East a little bit, depending if you get fans or not playing the Brooklyn Nets. So this is a big, the season is very important for the Bucks. And as you continue trying to bring your team continuity with the new guys.
For me, I don't think it is a concern. I'm with Giannis here. I wouldn't panic too much. And a lot of your points I agree with, Antoine. I think that defensively is where I do look at them as that being a strength over the last 2 seasons. And then this year, they're being 13th. In the last 2, they were first. So I think that's a point of emphasis. But when I look at their roster and how it's configured this year, they're trying to figure it out, especially down the stretch. In the postseason, we've seen this team try to use this same style of ball with Giannis taking the ball, putting his head down and getting to the paint, and teams just collapsing and completely eliminating that option from them, and Middleton not being able to step up like you talked about. So for me, yes, I think they're trying to find their way, but I also think that last year they got caught up into seeding. They got caught up into having the best record in the National Basketball Association. And right now, that's not their focus. They're trying to find a rhythm specifically down the stretch in the 4th quarter. Who can we go to? What unit can we put out on the floor? And I know Jrue Holiday hasn't been out there, but I'm not quite concerned because of the teams that they've also lost to outside the Thunder. Chris.
Greg, I know you so cool that you never let him see you sweat, but Giannis can't be as cool as you. All right, he needs to be sweating a little bit. I'm with Twan. I get it. Jrue Holiday has missed 5 games, so he's missed the whole losing streak. So you get him out there. He's your 3rd leading scorer. You're going to be better. But I got major concerns about this team. I think Philadelphia is better. I think Brooklyn is better. And in a playoff series, I wouldn't be shocked if Boston was better than this Milwaukee team. And it boils down to the same thing. I don't care if they were on a 4-game win streak. At the end of the game, they don't have a go-to guy. Giannis is phenomenal. He's great. But at the end of games, they can't give him the ball and say, create something. You look last night, he didn't score in the last 6 minutes. He was 0 for 3. He only took 3 shots. They get Brooke Lopez is getting shots. Pat Connaughton is getting shots. Chris Middleton, of course, is getting shots. Dante DiVincenzo's getting shots at the end of the game because they just can't give it to their main guy, Giannis, because of the jump shooting that he struggles with, as Antoine mentioned, and then the foul line as well. So they got major problems because their superstar player isn't even close to a go-to guy, and that's why I'm so concerned about the Bucks.
All right, let's move on to Boston. Jaylen Brown fueled the Celtics to a win over the Nuggets last night. Nikola Jokic went for 43 in this game, but Tatum and Brown were too much to handle. So, Antoine, are you concerned about the Celtics being contenders or pretenders after beating the Nuggets and getting back to 500? Now, don't be biased, my friend.
I'm usually biased with this, but I can't be biased now. They're not a contender right now. The Celtics are not better than the Brooklyn Nets. To me, they're not better than Philly. And I don't think they're better than Milwaukee. And I know we just try to chastise Milwaukee right there. They're not deep. When you look at the Celtics, their bench production is not very good. They have a great starting lineup. You put their starting lineup against any team in the league. But Brad Stevens is going to have to be creative with this team. If you're not going to make any moves to add to your bench, maybe add a big to help you out. You saw that last night with Jokic having 43. The Celtics don't have a legitimate big inside. I know they acquired Tristan Thompson, but they don't have that bench production that's needed. Everything's in the starting lineup, and they go through long stretches where they don't be productive offensively. So I think that's Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown coming out the game early and going to that second unit. But the big question mark, and I really don't want to grade him until Marcus Smart come back. We know he's the heart and soul of this team. We know when he's there defensively what he brings into this team. So if they get Marcus Smart back, we'll be able to make a more fair assessment and judgment of how far the Celtics can go. But right now, the lack of bench production and depth on this team is really hurting the Celtics.
Yeah, for me, I can be quick here. I think they're pretenders simply because of all the reasons you alluded to. But for me, what stands out most is the bigs, the lack of big and inside presence that they do not have. And when you look at that East, you have to have some bigs. And when you look at Joel Embiid, a team who in the postseason, they have owned. But Doc Rivers kind of changes the landscape for that 76ers team. So I don't like this Boston Celtics team just solely based on what their roster looks like right now. And when I see Jason Tatum and I see Jaylen Brown averaging 25, 26, that's great. But who else are they going to have that can score against the Brooklyn Nets? Who they got Harden, they got KD, they got Kyrie, they got so many pieces that you're going to have to put up a massive amount of points in order to be in those games. So I think this team is a pretender.
Yeah, look, they can improve internally. Kemba Walker is not himself yet. You know, he's kind of still working his way back from the injuries. And so I expect him to get better. Twan mentioned Marcus Smart, who hopefully will be back in a few weeks for them from the calf injury. He will make them better. And Jason Tatum talked recently about how coming back from COVID has messed with his breathing at times. And you see his numbers have been down a little bit since he got back from COVID. So I think they will improve internally, but ultimately, I'm with you guys. They're pretenders. I can't see them beating Brooklyn in the playoffs. I can't see them beating Philadelphia. You know, they used to beat Philadelphia because Brad Stevens would outcoach Brett Brown. But now he's not going to outcoach Doc Rivers. So Philadelphia, I think, is better than them. And yeah, you know, right now I'd say Milwaukee's better, but with their issues, maybe that's the team Brooklyn could beat. But yeah, I would be stunned I would be gobsmacked. I like using that word on this show. If Boston came out of the East. So I got to say that they're pretenders.
All right, well, we'll be back talking Bruce Arians. And was he taking a shot at Bill Belichick with his latest comments? We have that next coming up on the First Things First.
Sami Zayn in his six-man tag team match. It's an all-new Friday Night SmackDown, live at 8 Eastern on Fox.
All right, we're back with B. West talking Tom Brady. We're learning a little bit about what motivated the GOAT to win his 7th ring this year in Tampa. Bruce Arians said last week on Inside the NFL that Tom left for Tampa to try a different way to win. So, Brian, did Tom Brady winning a championship in Tampa Bay hurt Bill Belichick's legacy?
Well, hold on. Let's start there first. Is that the reason why Tom actually left? Was it because he just wanted to find a different way? Or was New England not willing to pay as much money as Tom wanted and guarantee his contract and give him enough years? I mean, that was my first thought when I first read it. Like, is that exactly what happened? I thought it was about the money. But here's the thing. No matter what Tom Brady does, if Tom Brady goes and wins 3 more rings down there in Tampa, he can't affect Bill Belichick's legacy. I mean, just think about it. Bill Belichick, over the 20 years that Tom Brady and himself were together, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 rings. I mean, it's hard to be able to be relevant for that amount of time, and Bill Belichick was a big part of that. Even if Tom Brady was just as big of a part of it, Tom Brady controlled the offense. You still have the special teams player. You still have the defensive guys. So you have to think about that as well. And Bill Belichick was in charge of the culture. He was in charge of making sure that guys understood what the Patriot way was and how to perform that every single week. To me, that was huge. That's a big part of their success up there in New England. The way that Bill Belichick ran that whole thing in New England, it allowed Tom Brady to be who he was. So no matter if Tom Brady goes on to win a bunch of more rings, his ability to win doesn't necessarily affect Bill Belichick. To me, all that Super Bowl did for Tampa Bay and Tom Brady did was really validate that he is the greatest of all time. His ability to be great in one location and then go to another location in less than a year and win another Super Bowl, to me, that just validates who Tom Brady is as a player.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. It in no way, shape, or form will ever impact Bill Belichick's legacy, whatever Tom Brady does from here on out, because his legacy has already been cemented, and he is a part of what Tom Brady did, as Tom Brady is a part of what he has accomplished. And so when you talk about the success of Bill Belichick or Tom Brady, you can't talk about it without including one or the other. So, but for me, I just want to focus on what Bruce Arians is saying, because I think there is some legitimacy to the fact that Tom Brady wanted to win and wanted to win a different way. And he wanted to have more fun. He wanted to be able to have say. And I believe that is what he wasn't able to get when we talk about contract, all the various things, the variables that allowed him to walk out that door, because he did want to stay in New England. That was his first choice. But to your point, Brian, they didn't give him what he was asking for. And a lot of that was more say too. And when you look what he was able to do with the Buccaneers, he had so much input. Bruce Arians is a coach that delegates with not only his coaching staff, but with players that he can trust. And he trusted Tom Brady to change and establish a culture of winning and a mindset of winning. And that's what Tom Brady embraced. That was the challenge. That was the excitement. When you talk to Tom Brady this year, he was up for the challenge of getting to know his teammates, making sure that they knew how important their roles were, not just about what he brought to the table. Because we all have this expectation of players like LeBron and Tom Brady that wherever they go, we expect them to win. That Tom Brady understands that. But how to do it is what's most important. And I think that was what was so appeasing and challenging for Tom Brady. And in this stage in his career, he wanted that challenge. He embraced that role. He looked forward to going to that locker room and that facility every single day and being that guy that they depended on to change that culture. So I think it was a bit a part of him wanting to do it a different way. There's lots of people in media and even ex-players that talked about the Patriot way not being so much fun. Gronkowski even talked about it and has alluded to it on numerous occasions about it's being strict and not as fun. Not meaning that they didn't have fun, but it wasn't as loose. And winning can be done without being so strict. Tom Brady proved that this year with the Buccaneers, Chris.
Look, obviously Belichick's legacy is secure. All right, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, Don Shula, nobody held it against them that at seasons didn't make the playoffs every year. All right, they were secure, and so is Belichick. But like those great coaches, Brady is proving, he's already proven it before he even went to Tampa Bay, that Belichick needs a great quarterback to win. And I think where it affects Belichick is this. There's always been this debate. They both get major credit, but who deserves more credit? Tom Brady or Bill Belichick for the dynasty? I've always said it was Brady. And I think the numbers bear that out. And what happened this year in Tampa and what happened this year in New England, to me, is just more evidence. Now, listen to these numbers, guys. These might shock you. Belichick has coached 8 seasons in the NFL without Tom Brady as his quarterback. And that includes New England where, when Brady got hurt. He's made the playoffs 1 time in those 8 years without Brady. Once. And that is with quarterbacks like Vinny Testaverde, who went on to make Pro Bowls after, he left Belichick. That includes Drew Bledsoe, who was a Pro Bowl quarterback. We remember what New England was with Belichick before Brady took over. They were 5-11 the year before Brady took over, and 0-2 when Bledsoe got hurt. Brady steps in. They go 11-3, and of course win the Super Bowl. So here's Belichick's record with Brady playing quarterback. They win 77% of their games when Brady's a quarterback. Average season 12-4. Without Brady as quarterback, overall, his whole career, Belichick, 47% of the games he wins. Even in New England, without Brady, he's only won 47% of his games. So I think we saw it this year. They struggled in New England with a former MVP. I don't know what Cam has left, but with a former MVP at least, Brady, what he's doing and what he did this season was, to me, prove beyond a doubt that he deserved more of the credit than Belichick did. You're right. The defenses was Belichick's specialty, and they were great, and they definitely helped him win those Super Bowls. But Brady, maybe it wasn't, at least offensively, the Patriot way as much as it's the Tom Brady way.
The only pushback that I have there for you, Chris, is that, Tom Brady was a big part of that. We understand that. But again, Bill Belichick won with some system guys. He won with a bunch of guys that just worked the system. They weren't great players anywhere else except for New England. And of course, Tom Brady, part of getting those guys in the right place at the right time and throwing the ball to him. And of course, Tom Brady is the GOAT. Here's the other thing I would wonder. If Tom Brady, they said, we'll find better pieces in New England, we'll pay you the money, would Tom Brady have won there? To me, he went to Tampa Bay, a much looser environment, but I think Tom Brady has a lot of Bill Belichick in him. He wants those routes to be 12 yards. He wants them to be 10 yards. He has the detail that Bill Belichick certainly wants from all of his players. And maybe he's a little bit looser, but he's looser when they're winning. When they're not winning, like Bill Belichick was, and when you talk about those other years, he was tight. He wanted to make sure that they were doing things the right way. I think this narrative kind of fits Tom Brady now because they won this season. But I would wonder if things would be different if they were started 7-5 like they did this year, and they didn't win their next 7 or 8 games in a row. They only won 2 or 3 of those games. I think we would be saying a whole different story about Tom Brady at this point, Greg.
I agree 100% with what you're saying, Brian. And Chris, the one thing that I would push back on you when you talk about Belichick needing Tom Brady, a great quarterback, to win, tell me and show me the list of coaches Bruce Arians being on that list that doesn't need a great quarterback to win. And that hasn't needed a great quarterback to win. That list is very short. In this league, you got to have the guy at the quarterback position. You just got to. Others are too good for you not to have that guy at the quarterback position, because these defenses are great. You got to have a court general or a field general under center when you're talking about that quarterback position. But Brian, to your point, when you talk about Brian or Tom Brady having a bit of that Bill Belichick way, or that just do your job, that Patriot way in him, he definitely does. And he talks about it. He talks about how Belichick instilled so many things in him that has propelled him to be the player that he is, specifically just locking in on every wakening moment. When they get on that practice field, give me everything that you got. And then when you get on the football field, you got 60 plays to be at your ultimate best. Prepare like a champion. Give me that time and be at your ultimate best. Those were things that Belichick instilled in Tom Brady. And yes, to your point again, Brian, when he is winning, we see Tom Brady smiling, having a jubilant time, a ton of elation. But when he is not, he is all business. And it's not that he's not all business when he's winning, because he understands how to keep the main thing the main thing. But when he is losing, he is trying to figure it out and identify where they have gone wrong and address it immediately. That's what makes him special. And that's what allowed this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team to do something special, like winning the Super Bowl this year, Chris.
All right, let's go back to the NBA. Is James Harden the biggest key to a next title run? That's what we'll hit next, right here on First Things First.
With Twan, and we're talking the Nets, who played last night with no Durant, no Kyrie, but James Harden says, I'll put the team on my back and we can take on the Suns anyway, who dropped a cool 38 points and 11 dimes as the Nets rallied back from 24 down to beat the Suns. 4 wins in a row now for the Brooklyn Nets. Chris, is James Harden more important than Kyrie or KD for the Brooklyn Nets in hopes to win the title?
Look, I love James Harden's game. I liked it in Houston when everybody said he was boring to watch and all that. I didn't think so. I thought it was amazing what he was able to do. But what he's showcasing in Brooklyn is incredible. This dude is an awesome playmaker and arguably the best point guard in the league. Combination scoring, running an offense, and passing. But I'm going to have to say no to that question. KD is the most important Brooklyn Net, because KD and Harden and the rest of their cast could win the championship. Could. I'm not saying they definitely would, but could. KD and Kyrie with the rest of their cast could win the championship. Harden and Kyrie, I don't think they'd win the championship. They maybe wouldn't even get out of the East. All right, I don't think they'd be favored to get out of the East. So KD is the guy that has to be there for them to win the championship. Now, Harden is critical in that he's the most versatile of their stars. Kyrie can't do what Harden does. Even though he's a point guard, he's not going to average the assist that Harden does. He's not going to run the offense and step back and not shoot as much like Harden does. Kyrie needs to be scoring. He needs to be scoring big for him to really impact and be effective. KD, same way. KD needs to score big for him to impact the game and really put his print on the game. Harden can do it. Last night, you need 40, I'll give you 40 or 38. You know, and then when they're back, you need me to average a triple-double. You need me to go from shooting 25 times in Houston to 15 times here in Brooklyn. Sure, I'll do it, and I'll still get you my 24 points. So Harden's versatility and willingness to step back and play differently than he has the past 8 years, that's critical. But for them to win a championship, the one guy that must be on the floor is Kevin Durant, Twan.
I had to agree with you, Chris, on that with the Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is the most important player on this team. And if I had to go in the order, it would be Kevin, James Harden, then Kyrie Irving. But KD has to be on the floor. He has to be healthy. I do not like where he's at right now, missing games for time. And he has obviously he's coming off a very difficult injury in Achilles, but, now hamstring. He has to be 100% because he's the one guy out the big three that plays both ends of the floor. He's going to defend. He can play multiple positions. He can defend multiple positions. So you need him at 100% because you're not going to be very good defensively unless you make some type of huge move, which may not happen. So you're going to need him out there. I think what worries me about Harden and what makes him not the most important, he hasn't shown up in enough big playoff games for me to put my trust in him. Kyrie's done it on the big stage. Obviously, Kevin Durant's done it on the big stage. But James Harden is yet to prove that he can do it on the big stage. He's came up empty. He's had some lackluster performances at times in the playoffs. So KD has to be healthy 100% because he's your best two-way player. And then with Harden, you have to have him playing at a very high level, not so much like last night where he has to score the basketball, but be a facilitator, get other guys involved, and then take a role defensively. He has to try to be a better defensive player for this Brooklyn team if they want to win it all. But right now, just to answer his question simply, KD is the most important player on the Brooklyn Nets.
Well, for me, I'm going to just stick with the question. It's James Harden more important than KD and Kyrie? No, he is not. No, he is not. He is not more important. Is he a crucial part of their success and how they will get to the finals and possibly win? Of course. We all know what KD brings to the table. We all know what James Harden brings to the table, and we know what Kyrie is. And I truly believe they all have some great value, and they give one another the best chance to win. You got to remember, the one guy who does not have the championship ring is James Harden. Kevin Durant has him. Kyrie has it. So when you look at these guys, they're playing for something different. They're trying to play to win without what they currently had or what they had in the past. James Harden is just trying to win one. So, Chris, to your point, yeah, he is the most flexible guy and versatile guy when it comes to being able to step back and facilitate and take less shots or then get you a 40 burger if you need it. I got that because we've seen it work in Houston. He's been able to do that, but it did not win him an NBA championship. And so that's all he's after. This is the reason why he decided, yes, I want to go to Brooklyn because I don't have to be what I once was in order for me to win a championship. They have pieces. I can play my role. I can do something that so many of us thought James Harden can't do that. He's not going to be willing to defer and be a facilitator. Well, he has been. And that doesn't make him any less valuable than the other guys, but it definitely makes him equally valuable, in my opinion, than the other three.
No, you guys have made some really good points. And I think, like Twine talked about Harden not stepping up in some big playoff games. It's interesting that he has taken this role. I agree, Twine. The order is KD, Harden, and Kyrie in terms of their best players and in terms of who's most important to them winning the championship. But Harden he's taken the back seat as the point guard. And so when they get in those big games, we're not going to look to Harden to be the one to hit the big basket. We're going to look to him to facilitate, to have, 10, 12 assists and about 20 points. But KD can hit the big shots. Kyrie certainly can hit the big shots. And so that may be why Harden has willingly put himself in this role. Now, the guy I'm most concerned about, and right now I feel good about it, he's playing great, but Kyrie. Where's Kyrie's head going to be at? That's a question mark. We don't know where it's going to be at. Is he going to continue to accept? I think so, but we just don't know because of his history. Will he continue to accept playing shooting guard and having Harden handle the ball and be the facilitator and only want to focus on scoring for Kyrie? So that's a question mark too. And I did not like him sitting out last night's game with back tightness. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really is injured. But I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't play the next 5 games. Come on. I think he was just resting. And I'm like, you got to be playing as much as you can with James Harden. I get it that KD wasn't there, and that's unfortunate, with his injury, I think is legit. But Kyrie, with him playing off the ball, with Harden being the point guard, they need to play together as much as possible. And the fact that Kyrie didn't seem to understand that by sitting out last night, I don't like that. And so we said it earlier, Twan, they have to get on the court as much as possible because they're not going to be able to step out there in the playoffs having only played 19 games together as the big three and win the championship.
And let me, to add to that, I was a part of a championship team in 2006, and you have to, it's about roles and assuming the roles and accepting the roles for the common goal, and that's to win a title. And it's really the things that that do not show up on the stat sheet. The one thing that concerns me is that is Kyrie Irving going to accept the role defensively? I'm not saying he has to be a great defensive player, but is he going to take a charge, put his body in front of somebody? Is Harden going to guard the best wing player? These are the type of assignments and things that they got to be willing to do. And the only way you do that, Chris and Greg, is by playing, getting some rhythm with each other, getting in some games, some late game situations. And if you continue to sit out games the way they are, you're not going to be there. You're not going to be ready to go when it comes to crunch time. It's totally different when you're injured. Obviously, you got to get healthy, but just sitting out games because you're good enough and not taking the season important. The season is important to these guys. They have to build some type of team continuity defensively as well as offense. The offensive part, as we've seen, has came very easy for this group. What are you going to do on the defensive end to be that championship team? Who's going to make that sacrifice out that big three? Right now, we know Kevin Durant can be a great two-way player in this league. Can Harden, can Kyrie Irving be somewhat above average defensively? Those are some of the question marks we're going to continue to look for. But the only way you get to that is by playing.
Good points, Twan. All right, it is time for Put a Grade on It. Now, yesterday, Twan, Greg told us he's more than a rough and tumble football player. Said he was a walking bucket in high school, and he looks like he was. I want you to put a grade on Greg Jennings' high school basketball skills. He balling, man.
I like the post up. I like the pull up. Okay, let me see something. Off the dribble.
I think I got a hezzy in
Greg,
there.
Greg, you know what, Greg? Greg, I've seen a lot of football players try to play basketball. I played with Donovan McNabb all 4 years of high school. Now, I remember that I played with Donovan McNabb all 4 years of high school, and I thought he was great. You right up there, brother. You right up there. I got to give you an A, man. I got to give you an A. You showing me a little bit of everything. You're scoring from everywhere. I got to give you an A. But that's football and basketball.
Yeah, he's balling.
Yeah,
the hoop and the harm right there. Yeah, and that range.
Chris, I know you got some input.
I gotta be honest. I'm liking what I'm seeing, man. You showing everything, like Twan said. You going off the dribble. You finishing in traffic. Had a little post game. The range. Yeah. I mean, I'm impressed, man.
I don't like that number, though. I don't like that number. That's the only thing I'm holding this. I don't like 15.
What's wrong with the number?
Think about how many great 15s are there.
But I was trying.
That was it.
You know, when I was growing up, I was trying to establish my own number. That was my football number, my basketball number. I was trying to pave my own lane. You know what I mean? And you see, I took that 15 to the gridiron because it didn't work with the basketball.
Well, Greg, nice. I know Tom Izzo was right outside your locker room after that game. He had to be. All right, we got to talk some OBJ. Will he get back to his all-pro ways, and will it be in Cleveland? We'll discuss that next. All right, we're back with Brian Westbrook, and it's time to run the no huddle. J.J. Watt is reportedly considering the Browns as his next destination. The Titans have also made DeAndre Hopkins posted on Instagram yesterday campaigning for Watt to join him in Arizona. So, Brian, where should the great J.J. Watt go?
You know, Chris, when I think about it, it's time for J.J. Watt to get Super Bowls. It's time to get rings. He wasn't able to do that down there in Houston. To me, there's only two teams that he should even consider. Green Bay. Of course, you got Aaron Rodgers. That puts you at least in the NFC Championship game by itself. But that Packers defense needs to find some more toughness. J.J. Watt offers that. And then the Buffalo Bills. You know, they have a good defense already. I love Leslie Frazier as a defensive coordinator. But if they can add another guy that can make plays on the defensive side of the ball at the line of scrimmage, I think that takes that defense to a next level. So those are the two teams that I'm thinking about there, Chris.
Yeah, sorry to D-Hop, but I'm with you. I don't think he should be looking at Arizona. I think it should be Super Bowl or bust for him. Cleveland, most people wouldn't say they're going to win a Super Bowl, but he could definitely help that team. There's no doubt. Pittsburgh, no Super Bowl, even though he could go there with his brothers. I'm with you on Green Bay. I like him there. He's from Wisconsin, played at Wisconsin, has talked, emotionally about watching the Packers practice when he was a kid and all that. So I would like to see him go to Green Bay, help that defense, and help Aaron Rodgers maybe get another ring. So I think he should head up to the frozen tundra where Greg used to ball.
Yeah, I hear you guys, and that would be good. The one pushback that I would have on the Green Bay Packers is J.J. Watt is the type of player that wants to play with space. And what that looks like for a defensive lineman, Brian, is when he has others that can pressure the quarterback. And yes, they have Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, but up front, I just don't know if they have enough with just Kenny Clark. And J.J. Watt he's a hand in the dirt type of a guy, especially this stage in his career. For me, it's Tampa Bay. They could potentially lose Shaq Barrett and insert in a J.J. Watt, a guy who can still rush the passer, who's going to have space created because of the amount of pressure that they are able to get. And Todd Bowles will draw up some things that will make J.J. Watt become elite all over again. Not saying that he's not, but he's not the J.J. Watt of old. I like J.J. Watt getting the Super Bowl, as you both mentioned, getting a chance to win it. This is what it's about for him, winning a Super Bowl, and I think his chances will be best suited down in Tampa.
All right, guys, let's move on to Dak Prescott. He took to Instagram and confirmed his desire to play for the Cowboys next season in a back and forth with tight end Blake Jarwin. Brian, this contract saga has dragged on. It's just crazy at this point. Is it time for the Cowboys to go ahead and sign Dak to a long-term deal?
If I was a Cowboys fan, which I'm obviously not, my question would be, what are we doing? Why haven't we signed Dak Prescott yet? I mean, what exactly more do you need to see? He was on pace this year to have a record-breaking year. Obviously, he had his best season of all of his seasons in 2019. Dak Prescott is the glue that holds this franchise together, especially offensively, but he's also the face of the franchise. He's the guy that steps up and says the right thing at the right time. He does all the right things for your organization, even when sometimes your owner doesn't say the right things. To me, what else do you want from a guy? You got production, you got the face of the franchise, and a great leader. The people in that locker room respect him. What else could you ask from a quarterback? I think it's been overdue. The payment of Dak Prescott. He deserves a long-term deal, and there's no doubt about that.
Well, Brian, there's a report out there that Russell Wilson is eyeing the Dallas Cowboys. Now, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm doing my due diligence on that. I'm seeing if that's true. I'm seeing if I can get a hold of Russell Wilson and get him down in Dallas. That would be my first option. Now, maybe that's a pipe dream. Maybe the report is wrong. But I'd rather have Russell Wilson. If I can't get him, then yeah, I have to sign Dak. And I like Dak a lot. I think the Cowboys have blown this thing. They could have just given him the 4-year deal last year. They wanted 5, he wanted 4. They should have just given him what they wanted. In the long run, it wouldn't cost them as much money. Now, you got to maybe franchise him at $38 million or give him, $40 million per that he reportedly is looking for at this point. So they've let it drag out too long. And when you have a guy that may not be he's not a top 5 quarterback, maybe not elite, but he is a franchise quarterback. He's a guy you can win big with. You got to lock him up. Again, if you can't get Russell Wilson, Greg.
Yeah, it's been time for the Dallas Cowboys to sign Dak Prescott. And it's unfortunate that he suffered the injury this year that ended his season early in the season, because he was on a rampage to start the season. And we gotta remember, this is a quarterback that was in question. Can he carry the team, or does he need the supporting cast to support what he does? Early in his career, yes, that was the case. But then the year before last, and then this start of this past season, he showed that, no, I don't need all these pieces. They need me. And I'm the glue, like you said, Brian, that keeps this offense steamrolling the way that we can be. It's other things that needs to happen for that team to start winning. But as far as Dak Prescott is concerned, pay that man.
All right, let's move on to San Francisco. Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio predicted that the 49ers will release Jimmy G instead of trading him. He cites that his contract is a potential roadblock to a deal. Now, Brian, do the Niners need to upgrade from Jimmy G at quarterback?
Yes, they do. And I'm not a big Jimmy G hater. I just think that he has the ceiling, and he's probably already reached that ceiling. In order for us to, they have to have a great defense, and they have to have a great game plan from Kyle Shanahan. They also have to not turn the football over, and then Jimmy G can go out there and play a great game. You don't always get that week in and week out. So that means you need good quarterback play from for the most part, week in, week out. And I don't know that Jimmy G can play at that elite level every single week of the NFL season. So in order for them to get over that, get to that next level as a team, maybe potentially return to the Super Bowl like they were a couple years ago, they need better play at the quarterback position. And that probably is a different quarterback.
Brian, I think need is too strong. I get his warts. You know, like you said, he's not elite every Sunday. That's for darn sure. And he's injury prone. That's really the biggest issue, is that he's rarely on the field. But when he is on the field, he wins. They are 24-8 with Jimmy Garoppolo as the starter there. They were 3-3 last year, which isn't great with Jimmy G, but they were 3-7 without him. This dude has something about him that leads guys to win. And let's not forget, they were not only in the Super Bowl, but they were up on the vaunted Kansas City Chiefs by 10 points with 8 minutes left. I get it. He missed the long throw that could have sealed the deal, but still, he's not a bad quarterback. If I can go out and get a Deshaun Watson or somebody that's better, fine, I'll do it. But if Jimmy G is healthy, the defense is healthy, I do think this is a team that can get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. They don't need to upgrade. They would like to. They wanted to upgrade last year. They wanted to acquire Tom Brady if they could make it happen, but it didn't happen. It didn't work out. So when you look at Tom or this team in the 49ers and what they've been able to do, and they got to the Super Bowl the year before with Jimmy Garoppolo not being the focal point. It was their running attack. It was their defense. Jimmy Garoppolo at the quarterback position was a third wheel. In this league, you can only do that if you have the pieces around that support what you have under center. And Kyle Shanahan is a huge part of that. That's why they don't need to upgrade, but they would like to upgrade because they want to show this league that they are a team to be reckoned with and that they have a quarterback that will get the job done guaranteed. I get that he wins, but he didn't win when it mattered most. And so with that, you leave the door open for somebody to come and take your team.
Brian, let me ask you this. If the Niners do move on from Jimmy G, do you think New England should go ahead and sign him?
Well, New England, just like Greg was mentioning, if you want to be a winning football team, you have to have a quarterback. We've seen and we know that Josh McDaniels and Jimmy G have a relationship, so I think that would be a great fit. If you're the Patriots, absolutely, I'm going after him. He's not going to make the big mistakes, and that's the Patriot way, not making the mistakes. You don't have to be the greatest of all time, but as long as you don't make mistakes, you put the team in a position to win. I think the Patriots at least believe that Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels can scheme themselves into winning football games, and I think that's exactly the type of quarterback that Jimmy G is. He's not going to take you to that ultimate goal, that Super Bowl. But if you have all those other pieces, like Greg mentioned, I think he can help you win a lot of games.
Yeah, this would be a no-brainer to me. I mean, Belichick has to be chomping at the bit to try to get Jimmy G back in New England. He knows the system. Obviously, Belichick and that coaching staff believe in him. And we talked earlier about, is Tom Brady kind of trying to prove, that he can win without Belichick? I'm not sure about that, but I am more confident that Belichick wants to prove he can win without Tom Brady. He thought he could do it with Jimmy G a few years ago, so I definitely think that would be a great move for New England, Greg.
I'm not so certain. I know there's history. I know there's a rapport, but with the team and the way they're constructed, you look at the skill guys, you look at their running attack, you look at their offensive line, it doesn't support what Jimmy Garoppolo needs. And when you look at what he has in San Francisco, that he has a good offensive line, that they run the ball effective very well, one of the best running attacks in the National Football League when healthy, and then they have playmakers outside. So it's all suited up for him. If you make that trade and you go after Jimmy Garoppolo and you bring him to New England, what does he have around him to support him? That would be my only concern for Jimmy Garoppolo.
All right, speaking of the Patriots, is Bruce Arians taking shots at the great Bill Belichick with his latest comments? That's...
Elimination Chamber combatants collide when Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Cesaro battle Jey Uso, King Corbin, and Sami Zayn in a 6-man tag team match. It's an all-new Friday Night SmackDown, live at 8 Eastern on Fox.
All right, we're back and we're talking Tom Brady, learning a little bit about what motivated the GOAT to go out and win his 7th ring this year in Tampa. His coach, Bruce Arians, said last week on Inside the NFL that Tom left for Tampa to, quote unquote, try a different way to win. So, Greg, how should the great Bill Belichick view Arians' comments?
It doesn't matter to Bill Belichick. Like, he's not concerned about it. He's on his boat called 7 Rings. 7 rings. Let that sink in. Why would he at all concern himself with what Bruce Arians is talking about when he's won his first as a head coach? So, like, I love what Bruce Arians has said. I think there's some validation to it. But when it comes to Bill Belichick, he is secure in what the culture is that he has established in New England because it works. And it not only has worked with Tom Brady, it has worked without Tom Brady. Yes, this was a down year. Yes, they didn't get the production that they wanted out of Cam Newton and the rest of the team for that matter. But I'm sure just like the table was set for Tom Brady, and they established that defense first, and then they got that running game secured, and then Tom Brady just took over the league by storm. That is the key to the success. They don't have to rebuild. They just rearrange some things and insert some pieces. Bill Belichick will find a way to get this team back to where it wants to be. They may not win it all next year, but they will be more competitive. I guarantee you that. And it will have nothing to do with what Bruce Arians has said about Tom Brady and wanting to win a different way. That has never been Bill Belichick's way of approach, is to look outside of the organization. No, he looks within, he corrects what needs to be corrected, and he moves on from there. So I don't think this will one second be something that's on Bill Belichick's radar as he sits on his 7-ring named boat, fishing, having a great time, scheming up ways to get better.
Yeah, Greg, I'm sure Bill Belichick probably didn't even hear the comments, to be honest with you, because he's not concerned with any other team other than his. But in order for his team to get better, you got to think about this. They have to get much better play at the quarterback position. Even when Tom Brady was there, the greatest of all time, they didn't have great skill players except for the Randy Moss years. They had some guys that fit the scheme. They had some guys that did well in their roles, but they had the GOAT, the quarterback that held things together. Bill Belichick has to find a way to get much better play from the quarterback position if they want to win. You got to think about this. They're going to have a culture because of Bill Belichick. They're going to have great character. They're going to work hard. They're going to be attention to detail. But at some point, you have to have players. They didn't do a great job of putting great players around Tom Brady throughout those years, but they put good enough guys that can run the system. Now you have to have a quarterback that can figure things out, that plays much better than Cam Newton, of course, this season. But you have to have much better talent around that quarterback, no matter who he is. And that's the one thing that Bill Belichick has not been very good at, drafting, finding guys in the draft and finding great talent. He has to do a much better job at drafting players if he wants this team to progress as a team that we all think they were when you think about that, Chris.
Greg, I think that Belichick renamed his boat 8 rings after his last one. Obviously, he's including the 2 when he was a defensive coordinator. But I think he needs to put like 8 rings and in parentheses, courtesy of Tom Brady. I mean, because look, Belichick is a great coach. His legacy is set. But Tom Brady going to win in Tampa does say a lot. And what it tells me is I'm looking at Belichick's record without Tom Brady. And I see that he's coached 8 years in the NFL without Brady as his starting quarterback. And he's made the playoffs 1 time in those 8 years. I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that he's won 77% of his regular season games with Tom Brady and 47% of his regular season games without Tom Brady. Belichick, again, legacy secure, as many rings as any other franchise has. You can't take that away from him. But Tom Brady has proven he can win it without Belichick. And God forbid he go out there and do it again next year. Belichick has to be steaming that he's got to get some rings. He wants to rename the boat 9, 10 rings without Tom Brady.
Chris, I think you're absolutely right. This Super Bowl had nothing to do with Bill Belichick. This Super Bowl was solely about the validation of a guy that probably didn't need validation already, Tom Brady. But this is about the validation of a guy that went to a new team without the offseason, without the OTA situation, without a regular preseason in Tampa Bay, with a brand new group of guys that started the season 7-5 and found a way to win. To me, it's the validation of Tom Brady. That's solely what this Super Bowl was all about.
All right, we're going to jump to putting a grade on it. And yesterday, Greg said he was, quote, a walking bucket in high school. And guess what? Looks like he wasn't lying. We pulled the tape. All right, Brian, you played point guard in high school. Give us a grade from Greg's. This is his state championship game in Michigan.
Hey, listen, we can tell that Greg can score. He had the pull-up game, the take it to the basket, the three-point shot. To me, I mean, he's a great scorer. We see that. He was a walking black hole. I mean, he's the guy on the team that you're never, if you pass the ball in there, you'll never get a pass back. He'll never throw it back. But if you need a scorer, this is Greg Jennings. He'll definitely do that for sure.
Yo, he pulling up from the ash. He looking like Dame Dollar out there. But I am wondering, where's the D? Where's the D?
I actually used to pass.
Can I get an assist? Can a brother get an assist?
Hey, look,
we don't have any assist highlights at all.
It's a highlight reel. It's about me. It's okay. Let me.